Hey everyone, it is Bulletproof Monday. Susan Sly here. I hope you are doing amazing, whether you are here live with me on Facebook or you are watching on YouTube or you're listening on iTunes. Wherever in the world this finds you, I just want to say welcome. Chances are you're here because you want to become more productive. You have a business, you've got a lot of life going on. Maybe there's kids, there's aging parents. I've got both of those. Whatever it is, you are on a quest to be more as a person, to do more in your life, to serve more. And I want to acknowledge you. I have been away and it's been so wonderful to be back. We've been in Israel. We were in the UK, we were in Toronto, and I'm here and I'm home. It's great to see so many of our amazing regulars. It's great to see you, Hadass and Shelly Jean and Bruce. Lots of love and shouts out to you guys. So for the most part, one of the things that we find in life is that we have highs and lows. How many of you know exactly what I'm talking about? So at sometimes your energy is high, and when it is, you feel like you can conquer the world. You make your business calls, your sales calls, you do your follow-ups, you're organized, you get your workout in, you make gourmet meals, and you're like, yes, I've got this. And then there are other times when your energy is low and you're exhausted, and things that normally should be easy for you or even necessary for you are the things you procrastinate on. Can anyone relate to that? I'm sure you can. So one of the challenges that we have in life is figuring out what our optimal is. And optimal, by definition, is when you're in the zone. And how many of you know exactly what it's like to be in the zone? So maybe as an athlete, there's that sweet spot where you feel like you can do anything, you can win the race, you can get on the podium, and all athletes know exactly what the zone is. In business, when you're in your optimal, what that means is that there's nothing you're procrastinating on, things are getting done, you're calm, you're keeping it together, one of your employees comes to you and it's like, oh my gosh, this is all going, you're like, okay, that's fine, it's fine, we'll work it out. But the reverse of that is true. When you're not optimal, that's when small things become big things. That's when you don't have it together. That's when things start piling up, and it can be have a lot of effects in your finances. It can affect your health. It can affect your relationships. And so the state we all want to be in is optimal. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode, is really this whole concept of optimal productivity. And when you want to figure out what is optimal for you, it's really by your definition. And it's so funny. I am not going to mention who it is, but there is someone with a massive social media following who just put out a video that said work-life balance is an individual choice. And it's hilarious because I was doing a speaking event with this individual many years ago, and it was probably about 8 years ago now, and I was talking about work-life balance. It's a he, comes on after me and goes, oh, that nice lady doesn't know what she's talking about. There isn't any work-life balance. You just have to hustle and push and push. I'm going to find the video because now this person is talking about work-life balance. In your life, either you're going to find balance or balance is going to force itself on you. And if you are not in your optimal, you are going to get out of balance really, really, really quickly. And that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to take you through 3 areas. I'm going to give you some very specific actionable items, as I do every single week, with the goal that you can take these, go out into your life, into your work life, your family life, and just go out there and crush it. So a couple quick announcements. My class, Organize Your Life, is actually filling up really quickly. It is one of the best pieces of work I do. I help you find that optimal productivity in your finances, in your relationships, in your health. It's amazing. It starts September 10th. You can go to susansly.com and check that out. If you love this, what you're listening to, what you're watching, my podcast show, The Susan Sly Project, I focus on helping people who are either starting businesses, thinking of starting businesses, growing businesses, connect with some of my amazing friends and guests, or learn from me. So check that out on iTunes. Hopefully you'll love it. I'm going to be doing a free, no strings attached, monthly live Q&A where you can come on and ask me questions about getting organized, getting productive, marketing, all of my strengths. I am a certified coach. The only people who get to come to that, there is one strength. I shouldn't say no strengths. I apologize. One strength is that you have to be on my mailing list. So go to susansly.com, make sure you're on the mailing list, and you'll get the invitation and the link to come and join it. If you can't be on live, you can also submit a question and I will answer your question in that time. So it's going to be awesome. So with that, let's get into it. So the first part of optimal productivity is being able to make a definition of your own optimal. So let's start with that. We all have a time in the day when we feel better than other times in the day, right? So for some of you, you are morning people. Do I have any morning people here? Hey, Joanne, it's great to have you here. So morning people, give me some shouts. If you're here with me live on Facebook, just put a comment in there. If you are a morning person, I want to hear from you. I personally am a morning person. I like to get up at about 4:30 in the morning. Hey, Trisha, it's great to see you. I like to get up at 4:30. I like to rock it out. That's my time when I'm up and I start my day with some prayer, meditation, really strong black coffee. And then I go in my office, I do some work, get my workout in. Then by this time, the kids are getting up. And someone said to me, how can you get up that early? And this person doesn't have kids. And I'm like, you do what you need to do, right, to get that quiet time. So that's my time. Some people are evening people and they get that burst at night, and that's when they're the most productive, whatever the case is. Here's the challenge. In business, there might be a difference, and go ahead and write this down, when you actually feel optimally productive and when you are optimally productive. And what I teach my students is that they have to adapt their optimal to their clients and their prospective clients. And so what I mean by that, let's say you are a morning person, and this is, I've always been a morning person. I started a business back in 2003, and it was a direct sales business. And a lot of the people I was talking to were available at night. So I was still up early in the morning, but I had to adjust to being able to give them a call after their kids went to bed. And so what I did is I'd still get up super early in the morning, but then I'd schedule Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, another 2 hours after my kids went to bed from 8 to 10. Even though I wasn't optimal, I had to adapt, right? And so we do have to do some adaptation. So one of the first things I want to ask you to do is figure out what time of day your optimal is. Now, we can always extend that, and I'll talk about the ways we can extend that in a moment, but your optimal is when you're mentally clear, when your mood is the best, and remember, either you're ruling your emotions or your emotions are ruling you. It's when you have the most energy, you make the best decisions, and I will also say to you with regard to decisions that you want to make the most important decisions when you're in optimal. How many of you have ever made a bad decision? How many of you have made a bad decision? You went, oh my gosh, or you sent a text or an email and you're like, oh, why did I do that? Because you weren't in optimal at that time, right? And so thinking about that, we have these times in our day when we are best equipped to make those decisions. We're best equipped to make the hard decisions, to get the things done. I had to send a text to someone this morning. It isn't the most pleasant text, but this person had promised me a deliverable and I still haven't received it. And now it's gone on for quite a period of time. And I've been very graceful and everything, but I had to send that text. And I knew if I didn't send it this morning, I wasn't going to send it if I pushed it to tonight, because I'm not at optimal. I might have had a different tone than I intended. It might not have been written the way I wanted to write it. So all of those things is understanding. So what you want to do is begin to journal and figure out when your optimal times of day are. So for me right now, my optimal is between 4:30 in the morning and about, I would say noon. Those are my best times. That's when I'm on fire, make the best decisions. Usually after noon, I start to, you might start to, feel like you don't have as many fresh ideas. I still have really good energy, but that creative stuff isn't happening for me. So how I tend to structure my day is do the creative stuff, make the hard decisions, do all that before lunchtime. And still I'm putting in a really good full day before noon, and then spend the afternoons. That's when I'm doing meetings. I might also do a podcast interview with someone because I've already got the questions prepared. I did that in my creative time, and now I'm using that time with stuff I've already got prepared. And that's the same thing for this show. Exactly the same. So the other thing with your optimal is that when you know what your optimal is, you can give your best self to people. I have a meeting that is going to be a face-to-face meeting, and I deliberately requested it for the morning because this meeting I'm going to be in, it's very technical. I'm doing a technical walkthrough of a tech stack, and I have to make sure I'm on. If I did that meeting after lunch, I might not be as focused. So hopefully this makes sense. If it does, just let me know, just do a thumbs up. And so often we don't think about our optimal. We really don't. We're just going through life. We're booking appointments here and there. We're like, oh, I'll do a sales call. I'll do this, whenever. And things don't happen because the most important things are not getting scheduled in the times they really need to be scheduled. And so thinking about that, and I'd love for you in the chat to tell me when you think your optimal is. I want to do a cautionary tale too. So in the evening, sometimes you get this second wind, and you can think, oh, it's so great. I get this second wind, and it's after 10 at night, and that's when I like to get things done. Sometimes that can be your adrenal and your hormonal system speaking to you, and you get the second wind because suddenly you're making all these decisions and things, and your body goes into fight or flight, and it fires off some adrenaline. Now, the unhealthy thing about that is you can actually push the envelope so much that you end up sick, you end up gaining weight, you end up with brain fog. And I know this because all of those things happened to me. I used to say, oh, no, I can handle it. I'm, back in my 20s, I can handle it. I can put in a 20-hour day. I can operate on 4 hours of sleep. I was a professional athlete. I owned a health club. I had, my daughter was about 3 at the time. I was on television, radio. What else did I do? Write for magazines. I had clients, and I taught nutrition at the college level. And so I had 56 employees, and I was like, I'll sleep when I die, and I can handle this. And I ignored all of the signs of being in adrenal fatigue and my body breaking down. And I gave myself multiple sclerosis. So I'm not talking to you today from this place of optimal and it's all fantastic. You can't be at your optimal 20 hours a day. I know that. But if you can get 7-8 hours of optimal a day, you are going to kick some butt. And even people like Richard Branson, who writes a lot about optimal productivity, Richard, he knows how to gauge his schedule. He knows how to work in 90-minute blocks. Tim Ferriss is another person. Tim knows that through his day, he needs to schedule time that's just for creative stuff, thinking time, meditation time. And if you begin to do this, I can promise you, my friends, you are going to get so much more done. Let me talk about tip number 2, which is optimal when it comes to sleep. So, once you identify what is your optimal time of day, the next thing is really looking at how much sleep do you need, and it's individual, and it can have a whole variety of, ranges depending on what's going on in your life. So depending on your age, your hormones, if you're sick, you can need different amounts of sleep depending, right? So so many of you have said, well, I can get by on less than 6 hours of sleep. No, you can't. You would probably be making more money. You'd have more drive in every area of your life. You'd feel better probably if you were getting more. And more research shows that although sleep is individual, what time we go to sleep is also very important. So some studies have illustrated that the most growth hormone we produce, that's our natural anti-aging hormone, happens sleeping between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And that when we start to shorten it and our sleep that happens after 12, we're not producing as much growth hormone. And I am a firm believer that we do everything we can naturally. And if my body can produce more growth hormone, if I go to bed earlier, then let's do it. Bring it on. So even for someone who says, well, I can operate on 6 hours of sleep, when are you getting that sleep? Are you falling asleep well before 10? Are you in that deep growth hormone building sleep? Or are you going to sleep after 12 and getting up at 6 a.m.? You can do that for a while, but eventually your body is going to break down. There was a triathlete, a very famous triathlete, who was one of the first men I ever read about to speak about adrenal fatigue. And he used to train 8-10 hours a day, sleep about 6, and he eventually put himself into full-blown adrenal fatigue, and he ended up and it was really sad, it took him 2 years of almost bed rest to recover. And so if you think I can get by on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, you can for a heartbeat, but then you're going to get sick. Your body is going to speak to you. So how do you know? You're going to have to play with it. Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, I have a podcast interview with him. You can check it out on iTunes. Dr. Bruce talks about that it is individual, but you're going to have to log it. And so what you begin to do is say, okay, no matter what, I'm going to take all my screens away for an hour before I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to play with different sleep times. And I'm going to work on getting, say, 7 hours of sleep or 7 hours and 15 minutes or whatever the case is. Now, some studies show that over 9 hours doesn't make a difference for people. They actually feel more tired. But again, if you're going through an illness or recovering from something, you might need it. That when I had pneumonia back a couple months ago, I was literally sleeping 22 hours of the day and my body needed it. It was screaming for it. Right now, for me, about 7 hours and 15 minutes puts me in optimal. 7.5 hours is optimal. Once I go over 8 hours, I am so tired and I have a hard time even sleeping that much. But I also know I'm not the person who I'm a little obsessive. I can't start like a Netflix show or something and not watch the end of it. So that's why I know I can't start that stuff and still put myself to bed at 9 o'clock, which is when I go. So your optimal sleep right now for whatever is going on for you, it might be 7.5 hours, it might be 8 hours, it might be 7 hours, but I can promise you it's not under 6 hours. That's your slap on the wrist. The next thing is your optimal diet. And so there are a lot of different things out there, keto and paleo and veganism and all sorts of things. Don't let your friends preach to you what is best for you. You are going to have to experiment. And you can take it from me, someone who formerly was a holistic nutritionist. You must experiment with you. You are built from 100 trillion cells and they are unique to you. You have unique DNA, genetically. You're you. Riel is Riel. Teresa is Teresa. Bruce is Bruce. I'm sorry, but it's not necessarily cookie cutter. There are some universal truths with diets. Let me walk you through those because these are non-negotiable. So the Framingham study done in Framingham, Massachusetts, they were looking at cardiovascular disease, but it was a longitudinal study, I believe over 30 years. Now, one of the things Framingham found was this, interestingly enough, that people who consumed 5 to 7 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables a day reduced their risk of cancer by, I believe, about 70%. So that's not crockery, that's not a fad. Your mama or your grandmama or someone told you to eat your fruits and veggies and you need to do it. And today we eat very few fresh fruits and vegetables. A lot of people get less than 7 servings a week, less than, forget about 5 to 7 servings a day. So, and I'm not talking about, necessarily just, putting superfoods in stuff. I do all that stuff too, but it's not it's in addition to, right? And it's not easy to do. I will be the first to confess that. Some days it is just a powdered greens product that's how I get it. But your body does need to chew things. It needs to digest things. So 5 to 7 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables a day. The next thing is water. When you're dehydrated, you're exhausted, your body doesn't flush out the toxins. It is a universal truth. You need 3 to 4 liters of water a day, especially in the summertime. And, I live in Arizona. We need at least a gallon of water a day. That's not negotiable. And then also making sure your body is getting the right kinds of proteins. Years ago, there was a book called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. Now I've had discussions with other medical practitioners. I have friends who are doctors who think this book is great. I have friends who are doctors who think this book is not great. Either way, you need to experiment. I was on an airplane last week coming back from Toronto. Yes, I had to think where I was. And this guy started going off on vegans and vegetarians. I'm like, I'm a vegetarian. Wow. Anyway, one of the things I will share with you is don't knock it until you try it. So you don't know how bad you're feeling until you start to feel good. And I'm going to say that again. You don't know how bad you're feeling until you start to feel good. And I'm going to say some things that might be a little controversial. I'm just telling you from my experience, and I'm not preaching on you to try them. But when I had my practice, if I had someone who, say, had cancer, I would often put them on a diet that was vegan-based, alkalizing, until their doctor, between their diagnosis and starting their treatment. So wanting to get the body in alkalinity, making sure they're putting a bit of baking soda in their water to alkalize their body, even peeing on strips to test for the alkalinity, stuff like that. So those are some of the things I did. Up the, fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing, then work with their physician, let their physician take over. But, I can tell you, between water, fruits and vegetables, getting the right proteins for your body, whether they're vegetarian proteins, or maybe some of you do well with animal protein. I don't. I ate it for the first part of my life. And then when I was a teenager, I started getting sick. Every time I ate it, I went off of it, felt better, went back on it. Then 14 years ago, every time I ate any form of meat, I would just get sick. If I had beef, I'd get depressed. I'd have anxiety. Now, that's just me. But I'm not here to preach on you what to do, because my husband eats meat and he's doing great with it. So does my son. 2 of my girls don't, 1 girl does. And so I believe that your body knows what it needs if you'll stop and listen to it. And when you're in optimum, here's how you'll know, and I'll finish with this. Your energy is going to tell you. And energy, as Tony Robbins says, is the most valuable commodity we have. Because when you have that energy, Teresa, Bruce, Riel, Suzanne, Michelle, Hadass, any of you, Shelly Jean, when you have that energy, you are on fire. You're unstoppable. Things just begin to flow. But when you don't have the energy, everything seems hard. So my question for you is, this. What can you do today, right now, to increase your optimal? Could you go to bed earlier? Could you drink more water today? Could you eat some more fruits and veggies today? I know, controversial, ooh, crazy, right? Could you maybe figure out a way to schedule yourself so you have a little more space and breathing space in between things, so that you're not burning the candle at both ends? So with that, I just want to say much love to all of you. I do read all of your comments. If you have comments, questions, I do go through and read them all. I just want to acknowledge you for being here. If this has been helpful, I would love for you to share it. Share it on your social media, share it, tag me. If you're listening in podcast time, share the show. Love for you to do that. And so with that, God bless, go rock your day. You're all amazing. And I will see you on next Bulletproof Monday.